We hope you enjoy the story. Let's start. I rubbed my eyes, struggling to focus on the seemingly endless pile of AP history essays before me. The clock on my classroom wall ticked relentlessly, a constant reminder of the late hour. 9:47 p.m. Vanessa would be wondering where I was. Just a few more, I muttered, reaching for my lukewarm coffee. As I took a sip, my laptop screen flickered and went dark. No, I groaned, frantically tapping keys and willing the machine back to life. But it was no use. The battery had finally given up the ghost. With a weary sigh, I gathered my things and headed for the parking lot. As I drove home, my mind drifted to the mountain of work still waiting for me. I'd have to finish grading those essays tonight if I wanted to return them tomorrow as promised. The house was quiet when I arrived. I found a note from Vanessa on the kitchen counter. Working late. Leftovers in the fridge. Love you. I smiled, touched by her thoughtfulness despite the pang of guilt at my own tardiness. I warmed up a plate of lasagna and carried it to our home office. Vanessa's laptop sat on the desk, its slim silver form a stark contrast to my clunky work-issue behemoth. I hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. She wouldn't mind if I borrowed it to finish my work. As the computer booted up, I savored a bite of lasagna. I navigated to my cloud storage, eager to access the rubric I created for grading the essays. A chat window popped up in the corner of the screen, catching my eye. My fork clattered to the plate as I read the message. Nathan, can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe. Hotels booked. Same place as last time. The room seemed to tilt sideways as I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. Nathan, my brother Nathan, messaging Vanessa, calling her babe, booking a hotel room. With trembling hands, I scrolled up through the chat history. My eyes darted back and forth, absorbing snippets of conversation that painted a horrifying picture. Vanessa, miss you already. Last night was amazing. Nathan, God, you're incredible. I can't get enough of you. Vanessa, we need to be more careful. Caleb almost caught me deleting our text last week. My breath came in short, sharp gasps as I continued to scroll. The messages went back years. Years of secret meetings, passionate declarations, and intricate lies. My wife and my brother, carrying on an affair right under my nose. A detached part of my mind noted the irony. Here I was, a history teacher, uncovering a secret history of my own life. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it all, but the sound caught in my throat, transforming into a choked sob. With shaking fingers, I minimized the chat window and began to search Vanessa's computer. I felt like a stranger in my own skin, violating my wife's privacy even as my heart shattered into a million pieces. But I couldn't stop. I had to know the full extent of their betrayal. I found a folder labeled Work Projects buried deep in a maze of subfolders. Inside were hundreds of photos, Vanessa and Nathan together in various exotic locations. Paris, Rome, Bali. All those business trips they'd taken over the years suddenly cast in a sickening new light. My eyes burned as I flipped through the images. Vanessa and Nathan posed in front of the Eiffel Tower, his arm around her waist. The two of them on a sunset beach, sharing a passionate kiss. My wife and my brother, looking happier than I'd ever seen either of them. Next, I discovered a folder of credit card statements. My stomach churned as I scrolled through page after page of incriminating evidence. Expensive hotel stays, lavish dinners, jewelry purchases, all carefully hidden from me over the years. But the final blow came when I stumbled upon a hidden email about a private medical appointment. The cryptic language hinted at a possible pregnancy scare. My mind reeled as I considered the implications. Our daughter, Emily, our beautiful 5-year-old girl, might not be my biological child. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the screen, my world crumbling around me. But as the initial shock began to fade, a cold, calculated anger took its place. I was a history teacher, yes, but I'd always had a hobby-level interest in digital forensics. Now, Those skills would serve me well. With methodical precision, I began documenting everything I'd found. I took screenshots, copied files, and created backups of all the incriminating evidence. As I worked, I made sure to cover my tracks, using my knowledge of digital forensics to ensure I left no trace of my discovery. By the time I heard Vanessa's car pulling into the driveway, I had compiled a damning dossier of their betrayal. I quickly closed all the windows, erased my digital footprints, and retreated to our bedroom, my mind racing with plans for what would come next. The next evening, I waited until Emily was tucked into bed before approaching Vanessa. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced my voice to remain calm and steady. "Vanessa, can we talk for a moment?" I asked, gesturing towards the living room couch. She looked up from her phone, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. "Sure, honey. Is everything okay?" I sat down across from her, studying her face. The face I'd woken up to for the past 10 years. The face I thought I knew better than my own. Now, it felt like I was looking at a stranger. "I wanted to ask you about Nathan." I began, keeping my tone neutral. Vanessa's eyebrows knitted together. "Nathan? What about him? You two seem to spend a lot of time together," I said, watching her reaction carefully. "I was just wondering about the nature of your relationship." "What do you mean?" Vanessa asked, her voice rising slightly. "He's your brother. We're friends, of course." I nodded slowly, as if considering her words. "Just friends? Nothing more?" Vanessa's eyes darted away for a split second before meeting mine again. "Caleb, what are you getting at?" "Nathan and I work together sometimes, that's all." I leaned forward, my gaze never leaving her face. "Are you sure there's nothing else you want to tell me, Vanessa?" She shifted uncomfortably on the couch, her fingers twisting in her lap. "I don't know what you're talking about, Caleb. You're starting to worry me." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. With deliberate slowness, I pulled up one of the photos I discovered, Vanessa and Nathan kissing on that sunset beach. I turned the screen towards her. "How about now?" I asked quietly. "Anything you want to tell me now?" The color drained from Vanessa's face as she stared at the image. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "I know everything, Vanessa," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "The affair, the trips, the secret meetings. All of it." Vanessa's facade crumbled. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she buried her face in her hands. "Oh, God, Caleb. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I sat back, watching her break down. A part of me wanted to comfort her, to take her in my arms like I'd done so many times before. But that part was overshadowed by the cold, hard knot of betrayal in my chest. "How long?" I asked. Vanessa looked up, her mascara smeared around red-rimmed eyes. 6 years, she whispered. The admission hit me like a physical blow. 6 years. More than half our marriage. Why? I managed to choke out. Vanessa wiped at her eyes, her shoulders slumping in defeat. I don't know. It just happened. Nathan was there, and he understood me in a way that... She trailed off, realizing how her words must sound. In a way that I didn't. I finished for her, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. She nodded miserably. "Caleb, I never meant to hurt you. I love you, I do. It's just, Nathan could give me things that I couldn't." I interrupted. "Like what, Vanessa? What could my brother give you that I couldn't?" Vanessa's eyes dropped to the floor. "Financial security," she mumbled. "I know it's terrible, but I was scared. A teacher's salary. I didn't think it would be enough for the life I wanted." Her words cut deeper than I thought possible. All these years, I'd thought we were happy, that we were building a life together. And all along, she'd been looking for an escape route. And Emily? I asked, dreading the answer but needing to know. Vanessa's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. "What about Emily?" I steeled myself, forcing the words out. "Is she mine, Vanessa? The silence that followed was deafening. Vanessa's face crumpled, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. And in that moment, I had my answer. "I don't know," she whispered. "I honestly don't know." I closed my eyes, feeling as if the ground had fallen out from beneath me. Our daughter, the little girl I'd rocked to sleep, taught to ride a bike, helped with her ABCs, might not be mine. When I opened my eyes again, Vanessa was looking at me with a mixture of fear and desperation. "Please, Caleb," she begged. "You can't tell anyone. Think about Emily. Think about our families, our friends. It would destroy everything." I stared at her, marveling at her audacity. She betrayed me in the worst possible way, and now she was asking me to protect her reputation? "I'll think about it," I said finally, my voice devoid of emotion. As Vanessa continued to plead and apologize, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. Unbeknownst to her, I'd been recording our entire conversation on a hidden device. It was just one more piece of evidence to add to my growing collection. After the confrontation, I retreated to my home office, my mind racing with plans. The soft glow of my computer screen illuminated the room as I delved into research mode. I spent hours poring over state laws on adultery, asset division, and child custody. Each piece of information I uncovered was carefully filed away in a secure, encrypted digital folder. This would be my arsenal, my protection against whatever might come next. As the first rays of dawn began to peek through the blinds, I reached out to a former student of mine, now a ruthless divorce attorney known for handling complex cases. I composed a carefully worded email, hinting at my situation without revealing too much. I needed someone who wouldn't flinch at what was to come. Over the next few days, I began meticulously documenting every interaction with Vanessa. Each text message, each email, each conversation was saved and cataloged. I watched her with new eyes, noting every inconsistency, every nervous glance at her phone. I started making small cash withdrawals from various ATMs, building up an emergency fund that Vanessa couldn't trace. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a safety net for whatever might come next. Late one night, I created a detailed timeline of Vanessa and Nathan's affair, cross-referencing it with family events, birthdays, holidays, anniversaries, all now tainted by the knowledge of their deceit. It was a painful exercise, but a necessary one. I discreetly reached out to a private investigator, arranging a meeting under the guise of research for a new history course. I needed more evidence, more ammunition for the battle I knew was coming. As I delved deeper into the world of high-stakes divorce, I began researching advanced financial strategies to protect my assets: trusts, offshore accounts, cryptocurrency. I explored every avenue, determined to come out of this with my future secure. Through it all, I developed a comprehensive plan for my revenge, my personal protection, and my future security. It was a chess game now, and I intended to be several moves ahead at all times. Vanessa noticed a change in me, of course. She'd try to initiate conversations, to apologize again and again, but I'd simply nod, give non-committal responses, and retreat back into my planning. In quiet moments, usually late at night when the house was still, I'd allow myself to feel the full weight of her betrayal. The pain would wash over me in waves, threatening to pull me under. But then I'd think of my plans, of the justice I would eventually see served, and I'd push the pain aside. I stood in front of my AP history class, discussing the intricacies of the Civil War. My voice was steady, my gestures animated. To anyone watching, I was the picture of a dedicated educator, fully invested in his students' learning. Inside, I was screaming. It had been 2 weeks since I discovered Vanessa's affair with Nathan. 2 weeks of pretending everything was normal. 2 weeks of dying a little more each day. But I couldn't let it show. Not here. Not now. "Mr. Matthews?" A student's voice broke through my inner turmoil. "Are you okay?" I realized I'd paused mid-sentence, staring blankly at the whiteboard. Shaking off the momentary lapse, I turned back to the class with a smile. "Sorry about that, folks. Got lost in thought for a moment there." Now, where were we? Ah, yes, the Battle of Gettysburg. As I launched back into the lesson, I silently berated myself. I couldn't afford slip-ups like that. My plan depended on maintaining absolute normalcy at school. In fact, I needed to do more than just maintain. I needed to excel. After class, I made my way to the principal's office. I'd been mulling over an idea for weeks, and now seemed like the perfect time to pitch it. "Come in, Caleb," Principal Anderson called out as I knocked on her open door. "What can I do for you?" I took a seat across from her desk, leaning forward with enthusiasm I didn't entirely have to fake. "I've been thinking about the bullying issues we've been seeing lately." I began. "I'd like to propose a new anti-bullying initiative for the school." Anderson's eyebrows rose with interest. "Go on." For the next 20 minutes, I outlined my plan. Peer mediation programs, awareness campaigns, guest speakers. I'd done my research, and I presented it all with passionate conviction. By the time I finished, Anderson was nodding approvingly. "This is excellent work, Caleb. I'm impressed by your initiative. If you're willing to take the lead on this, I think we can make it happen." I left her office with a spring in my step that was only partially an act. Leading this program would cement my reputation as a caring, involved teacher. It would also keep me busy and keep suspicion at bay. That evening, I attended my first meeting of the local historical society. As I mingled with the town's history buffs, I couldn't help but see the strategic value in expanding my social circle. These were respected members of the community. Their good opinion could be invaluable in the months to come. "Caleb," a familiar voice called out. I turned to see Tom Bradshaw, one of Vanessa's co-workers, approaching with a smile. "Didn't expect to see you here. Where's Vanessa?" I plastered on a rueful smile. "Oh, you know how busy she's been lately. I thought I'd let her have a quiet night at home." Tom nodded sympathetically. "She has been putting in a lot of hours." "You're a good man, Caleb." If only he knew. As I drove home that night, my mind was racing with plans. The anti-bullying initiative at school, the historical society, the after-school tutoring program I was considering starting. Each piece was a carefully placed stepping stone, leading me towards my ultimate goal. When I arrived home, Vanessa was curled up on the couch, watching TV. She looked up as I entered, her eyes hopeful. "Hey," she said softly, "how was your evening?" I shrugged, keeping my tone casual. "Not bad. The Historical Society meeting was interesting. How about you? Did you get some rest?" She nodded, then hesitated. I was thinking maybe we could talk about everything." For a moment, I was tempted. Part of me, a part one was trying desperately to silence, still loved her, still wanted to believe there was a way to fix this. But I couldn't, not if I wanted my plan to succeed. "Actually," I said, forcing a yawn, "I'm pretty beat. Rain check. Oh, and I almost forgot. I'll be staying late at school tomorrow. New tutoring program I'm starting. You should see if Nathan wants a grab dinner or something." The flash of guilt in her eyes was quickly replaced by confusion. "You want me to have dinner with Nathan?" I shrugged again, the picture of nonchalance. "Why not? He is my brother, after all, and you two work together. It's not like I can ask you to never see him again, right?" As I headed upstairs, leaving a bewildered Vanessa behind, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. Let her spend time with Nathan. Let them think I was oblivious, or forgiving, or just plain stupid. It would only make their fall that much harder in the end. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into my new project with gusto. The anti-bullying initiative was a hit, earning me praise from students, parents, and fellow teachers alike. My after-school tutoring program quickly became popular, with struggling students showing marked improvement. I even started a blog sharing history lessons and life advice. It was partly a way to build my public persona, but I found I actually enjoyed the writing. It gave me an outlet for the thoughts and feelings I couldn't express in my day-to-day life. All the while, I was laying the groundwork for my revenge. Casual conversations with friends became opportunities to plant seeds of doubt about Vanessa's fidelity. You know, it's funny, I'd say with a rueful chuckle. Vanessa's been working so much lately. I feel like I hardly see her. Thank goodness for Nathan. At least someone's keeping an eye on her at the office, right? I watched as concern and suspicion bloomed in their eyes, even as they rushed to reassure me. It was almost too easy. But the real masterstroke came when I volunteered to chaperone the senior class trip, a week away from home, surrounded by witnesses who could vouch for my whereabouts every minute of every day. It was the perfect alibi for what I had planned. The night before I left for the trip, I made an anonymous call to several local businesses. Using a voice modulator I'd purchased online, I tipped them off about Nathan's history of fraudulent practices. It was a calculated risk, but one I felt confident taking. By the time I returned from the trip, the whispers would have started to circulate. As I boarded the bus with the excited seniors the next morning, I caught sight of Vanessa watching from the parking lot. She raised a hand in farewell, her expression a mixture of guilt and longing. I waved back, my smile never reaching my eyes. Let her think I was oblivious. Let her think she was getting away with it all. I sat across from Vanessa at our kitchen table, my expression a carefully crafted mask of excitement and nervousness. The papers spread out before us held the key to the next phase of my plan. I know it sounds crazy, I said, but think about it, Vanessa. This could be huge. She looked at me skeptically, her brow furrowed as she scanned the documents again. I don't know, Caleb. A tech startup? It seems risky. I nodded, acknowledging her concern. It is risky, but Jake was one of my best students. He's brilliant, and this idea of his, it could revolutionize the industry. We'd be getting it on the ground floor. Of course, there was no Jake. No brilliant former student with a revolutionary idea. The startup was a carefully constructed fiction, a shell company created by my lawyer to serve as the perfect financial trap. Vanessa bit her lip, still hesitant. But our savings, that's a lot of money, Caleb. I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. It took every ounce of self-control not to recoil from her touch. I know, honey, but sometimes you have to take a risk to get a big reward. Just think about what we could do with that kind of return. The vacations we could take, the college fund we could set up for Emily. I saw the moment she wavered, the gleam of greed and possibility in her eyes. Well, maybe we could invest a little, just to test the waters. I shook my head, pressing my advantage. It's all or nothing, Vanessa. An opportunity like this, it's once in a lifetime. We'd be crazy not to go all in. For a moment, I thought I'd pushed too hard. But then Vanessa nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. Okay, let's do it. I returned her smile, squeezing her hand. You won't regret this, honey. I promise. As I gathered up the papers, my mind was already racing ahead to the next steps. The startup was just the beginning. I had plans within plans, each one designed to tighten the financial noose around Vanessa's neck. Over the next few weeks, I carefully laid the groundwork. I encouraged Vanessa to take out a second mortgage on our home, spinning tales of the amazing returns we'd see from our investment. All the while, I was secretly transferring my personal assets into protected accounts, building a financial fortress she couldn't touch. One evening, as we sat watching TV, I casually mentioned an article I'd read about credit scores. It's crazy how much those three little numbers can affect your life, I mused. Hey, when was the last time we checked ours? Vanessa shrugged, her attention still on the screen. I don't know. A while ago, I guess. Why? I affected a concerned frown. Well, with all the identity theft going around these days, it might be a good idea to keep a closer eye on things. Tell you what, why don't I set up some alerts? That way we'll know right away if anything looks off. She nodded absently, and I had to suppress a smirk. Little did she know, I'd already begun creating a complex web of minor debts in her name. Nothing too obvious, nothing that would raise immediate red flags. But over time, those small dings would add up, slowly but surely damaging her credit score. The real coup came a few days later, when I presented Vanessa with a stack of documents to sign. Just some routine financial stuff. I explained casually. Insurance updates, investment paperwork, that kind of thing. She barely glanced at the papers before scrawling her signature across the bottom of each one. If she had bothered to read them carefully, she might have noticed the document granting me power of attorney over our joint assets. But she didn't, and I filed the papers away with a sense of satisfaction. As the weeks turned to months, I continued to build my separate, secure financial foundation. Offshore accounts, cryptocurrency investments. I left no stone unturned in my quest to protect my assets and future earnings. All the while, I watched as Vanessa grew more excited about our investment in the startup. She'd check her phone constantly, eager for updates from our non-existent former student. I fed her just enough information to keep her hooked, painting vivid pictures of the wealth that awaited us. "You know," she said one night over dinner, her eyes shining with anticipation, "I've been thinking, once this investment pays off, maybe I could cut back my hours at work, spend more time with Emily." I nodded encouragingly, even as my stomach churned with disgust. Did she really think she deserved that kind of happiness after what she'd done? "That sounds wonderful, honey." I lied smoothly. "I'm sure Emily would love that." As I cleared the dishes that night, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. The financial trap was set. Vanessa was all but gift-wrapped for the coming disaster. And yet, I looked over at her, curled up on the couch with Emily, reading a bedtime story. For a brief, painful moment, I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with, the woman I'd thought would be by my side forever. But then I blinked, and the illusion shattered. That woman was gone, if she'd ever really existed at all. In her place was a stranger who betrayed me in the worst possible way. I turned back to the sink. The trap was set. Now it was time to spring it. I stood in the doorway of Nathan's office, watching as he paced back and forth, his face a mask of barely contained panic. It had been 3 months since I'd made those anonymous tips about his fraudulent business practices, and the dominoes were finally starting to fall. "I don't understand," Nathan muttered, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Everything was fine, and then suddenly it's like the whole world is falling apart." I stepped into the room, my expression a carefully crafted blend of concern and confusion. "What's going on, Nate? Talk to me." He whirled to face me, his eyes wild. "It's a nightmare, Caleb. Clients are pulling out left and right. The IRS is breathing down my neck. I've got partners calling me every 5 minutes, demanding explanations I can't give them." I moved closer, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. It took every ounce of self-control not to curl my fingers into a fist and strike him. "Jesus, Nate, that sounds serious. How can I help?" Nathan sagged into his chair, looking utterly defeated. I don't know if anyone can help at this point. I'm in deep, Caleb. Deeper than you can imagine." "Oh, if only he knew." "Come on," I said, forcing warmth into my voice. "You're my brother. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Why don't you walk me through what's been happening?" For the next hour, I listened as Nathan poured out his tale of woe. With each revelation of fraud, each admission of cooked books and false reports, I felt a savage joy building inside me. I was recording every word, of course, the hidden device in my pocket capturing it all for posterity. "And now I've got the IRS crawling up my ass," Nathan finished, his head in his hands. "I don't know what to do, Caleb. I'm screwed." I leaned forward, my voice low and intense. "Listen to me, Nate. We're going to get through this. I've got a friend in the financial sector. Let me introduce you to him. Maybe he can help straighten things out." Nathan looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "You do that for me? After everything?" I smiled, the picture of fraternal forgiveness. "Of course. You're my brother." 2 days later, I introduced Nathan to my friend, In reality, an undercover investigator I'd hired to dig even deeper into Nathan's shady dealings. I watched with satisfaction as Nathan, desperate for any lifeline, spilled secret after secret to the man he thought was a savior. As the weeks passed, I played my role to perfection, the concerned, supportive brother, always there with a sympathetic ear or a word of encouragement. All the while, I was gathering more evidence, recording more damning admissions. I even made sure to be seen publicly supporting Nathan, maintaining my good guy image even as I orchestrated his downfall. I'd show up at his office with coffee and donuts, or invite him over for family dinners. To the outside world, we were the picture of brotherly love. But behind the scenes, I was twisting the knife deeper and deeper. Anonymous tips to his remaining business partners about his unreliability. Whispers in the right ears about his questionable practices. Each move calculated to push Nathan further towards the edge. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any sweeter, Nathan handed me the ultimate weapon on a silver platter. We were in his office late one night, Nathan 3 sheets to the wind and pouring his heart out once again. I'd been carefully steering the conversation towards his personal life, and finally, he took the bait. "You know what the worst part is, Caleb," he slurred, waving his glass for emphasis. "I'm losing everything. My business, my reputation. And for what? A few cheap thrills with your wife." I froze, my heart pounding. This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. "What did you say?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Nathan's eyes widened as he realized what he'd let slip. "Shit, Caleb, I didn't mean..." But it was too late. The floodgates had opened, and Nathan, drunk and desperate, spilled every sordid detail of his affair with Vanessa. I sat there, my face a mask of shock and betrayal, even as I inwardly rejoiced. It was all being recorded, every damning word. As Nathan finally wound down, his face a picture of misery and guilt, I stood up. "I think I should go," I said, my voice shaking with what Nathan would assume was emotion. "Caleb, wait," Nathan pleaded. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, you can't tell anyone about this. It would destroy everything." I paused at the door, looking back at him. For a moment, I was tempted to reveal everything, to watch the horror dawn on his face as he realized just how thoroughly I'd played him. But no, the time wasn't right. Not yet. "I need some time," I said, my voice carefully controlled. "Just don't call me for a while, okay?" I left him there, slumped in his chair, a broken man. As I drove home, a plan began to form in my mind. One final push to send Nathan over the edge. The next morning, I made an anonymous call to Nathan's wife, Sarah. Using the same voice modulator I'd employed for the business tips, I told her everything about Nathan's affair with Vanessa. Well, almost everything. I left out the part about Emily possibly being Nathan's child. That revelation was being saved for a more public occasion. Over the next few days, I watched from afar as Nathan's personal life imploded. Sarah threw him out of the house, filing for divorce almost immediately. Between that and his crumbling business, Nathan was a man on the edge, and I was there to witness it all, playing the role of the supportive, forgiving brother. I'd invite him over for dinner, let him crash on my couch when things got too bad at home. All the while, I was gathering more evidence, recording more incriminating conversations. One night, as Nathan sat on my couch, his head in his hands, I decided to push a little further. "I just don't understand, Nate," I said, my voice soft with false sympathy. "How did things get so bad? I mean, the business stuff I can almost understand. But the affair? With Vanessa? How could you do that to me?" Nathan looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and haunted. "I don't know, Caleb. I wish I had an answer. It just happened, and then it kept happening and I couldn't stop it." I nodded, encouraging him to continue. The recording device in my pocket was capturing every word. "Tell me everything," I said. "Maybe if I understand, I can start to forgive." And so Nathan talked. He spilled every detail of the affair, every secret meeting, every lie they'd told. By the time he finished, I had enough information to destroy both him and Vanessa 10 times over. As I showed Nathan to the door that night, I allowed myself a small, calm smile. The trap was set. Nathan was primed for his fall. And the best part, he thought I was his only remaining ally. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie for what felt like the 100th time. The man staring back at me looked calm, collected. The picture of a happily married man about to celebrate his anniversary. If only they knew. Caleb, Vanessa's voice floated up from downstairs. Are you almost ready? The guests will be arriving soon. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. Be right down, honey, I called back, my voice steady and warm. As I descended the stairs, I saw Vanessa fussing with a flower arrangement in the foyer. She looked beautiful in her emerald green dress, her hair swept up in an elegant updo. For a moment, my resolve wavered. But then I remembered the photos, the messages, the years of lies and betrayal. My heart hardened once more. You look handsome, Vanessa said, smiling as she straightened my tie. I returned her smile, the perfect picture of a doting husband. And you look stunning as always. The doorbell rang, and just like that, the show began. For the next hour, I played my part to perfection. I greeted guests with warm handshakes and hearty laughs, topped up drinks, and shared amusing anecdotes about our years together. All the while, my mind was racing, going over every detail of my plan. I'd spent weeks preparing for this moment. The multimedia presentation was ready, loaded onto a USB drive in my pocket. Every piece of evidence had been meticulously organized and arranged for maximum impact. I'd even hired a professional AV team, ostensibly to put together a touching anniversary tribute. As the party reached its peak, I caught the eye of the AV technician and gave a subtle nod. It was time. I clinked my glass, calling for everyone's attention. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to me. Friends, family, colleagues. I began, my voice ringing out clear and strong. Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate Vanessa and me. These past 10 years have been quite a journey. I saw Vanessa beaming at me from across the room, Nathan standing awkwardly by her side. If only they knew what was coming. Before we cut the cake, I'd like to share something special with all of you. A little trip down memory lane, if you will. The lights dimmed and the projector hummed to life. I stepped to the side, my heart pounding as the first image appeared on the screen. It was a photo from our wedding day. Vanessa and I, young and in love, gazing into each other's eyes. A collective awe rippled through the crowd. Vanessa, I said, my voice thick with emotion, when I married you, I thought I knew everything about you. I thought we'd build a life of honesty, trust, and mutual respect. The next slide appeared. A photo of Vanessa and Nathan at the Eiffel Tower, his arm around her waist. But it seems I was wrong. A gasp went up from the assembled guests. Vanessa's face drained of color, her eyes darting frantically between me and the screen. Caleb, she whispered, what are you doing? I ignored her, pressing on with my presentation. For the past 6 years, my wife and my brother have been carrying on an affair behind my back. More photos flashed across the screen. Vanessa and Nathan on various business trips, snippets of their intimate text conversations, credit card statements showing hotel stays and expensive gifts. They lied to me, to all of us, time and time again. I continued, my voice steady despite the turmoil in my gut. They betrayed not just me, but every single person in this room who ever believed in the sanctity of marriage and family. Nathan tried to step forward, his face a mask of panic. Caleb, please, we can explain. I held up a hand, silencing him. Oh, I think you've done enough explaining, Nathan. In fact, why don't we let everyone hear it in your own words? With the press of a button, Nathan's drunken confession from that night in his office filled the room. I watched as the color drained from his face, as Vanessa crumpled into a nearby chair. But I wasn't done, not by a long shot. And now, the final piece of the sordid puzzle, I said, my voice cutting through the shocked murmurs of the crowd. As if their betrayal wasn't enough, they've robbed me of something even more precious. I paused, letting the tension build. My daughter. The room fell deathly silent as I revealed the results of the paternity test I'd secretly conducted. Emily, the little girl I'd loved and raised for 5 years, wasn't mine. Vanessa was openly sobbing now, her makeup running in black streaks down her face. Nathan stood frozen, his eyes wide with horror. As for me, I maintained my calm, almost sympathetic demeanor. I was the wrong party here, taking the high road despite the magnitude of their betrayal. I've struggled for months with how to handle this, I said, my voice softening. I've prayed for guidance, for the strength to forgive, but in the end, I realized that the only way forward is to make a clean break. I turned to face Vanessa directly, my eyes meeting hers for the first time since the revelation began. Vanessa, I'm filing for divorce. The room erupted into chaos. Friends and family members surged forward, some to comfort me, others to confront Vanessa and Nathan. Through it all, I stood tall, accepting condolences with quiet dignity. As I watched Vanessa being led away by her shocked parents, Nathan slinking out a side door to escape the angry murmurs of the crowd, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The truth was out. The reckoning had begun. The weeks following the anniversary party were a whirlwind of activity. I'd known chaos would ensue, but even I was surprised by the speed and ferocity with which everything unraveled. Vanessa was the first to feel the full force of my carefully laid plans. It started with a frantic phone call just days after the party. "Caleb," she said, her voice trembling on the other end of the line. "Something's wrong with our bank accounts. All our savings, they're gone." I feigned concern, my voice a perfect blend of confusion and worry. "What do you mean gone? That's impossible." "I don't know," she wailed. "The startup we invested in, it's declared bankruptcy. Everything we put in is just gone." I allowed a note of anger to creep into my voice. "The startup? You mean the one you insisted we pour all our money into?" It was a masterful bit of gaslighting, if I do say so myself. In reality, of course, I'd been the one to push for the investment. But in the emotional aftermath of the party, Vanessa's memory was hazy. It was all too easy to plant the seed of doubt, to make her believe this had been her idea all along. I thought," she stammered, clearly thrown off balance. "Never mind." I cut her off. "I'll call the bank, see what I can find out." I hung up, a smile playing at my lips. The financial trap had been sprung, and Vanessa had walked right into it. Over the next few days, the hits kept coming. Vanessa discovered that not only were our savings gone, but we were now deeply in debt. The second mortgage she'd insisted on taking out for additional investment loomed large, a millstone around her neck. Meanwhile, my lawyer had initiated aggressive divorce proceedings. Armed with the mountain of evidence I'd accumulated, he painted a damning picture of Vanessa as an unfaithful wife who had systematically deceived and financially abused me throughout our marriage. I made sure to be seen around town looking haggard and stressed, playing the part of the wronged husband valiantly, trying to keep it together. The sympathy and support from the community were overwhelming. If only they knew the full extent of my machinations. Nathan, for his part, was faring no better. His business was in free fall, clients fleeing in droves as whispers of his fraudulent practices spread through the grapevine. The IRS was breathing down his neck, and his former business partners were distancing themselves as quickly as they could. I watched from afar as Nathan made increasingly desperate moves, taking bigger and bigger risks in an attempt to stay afloat. Each failure only served to dig him deeper into the hole I'd so carefully prepared. One particularly satisfying moment came when I overheard a conversation at the local coffee shop. Two of Nathan's former clients were huddled over their lattes, voices low but not quite low enough. "Can you believe it?" one of them muttered. "I heard he's been cooking the books for years. The IRS is going to crucify him. The other shook his head in disgust. And to think we trusted him with our money. Thank God we got out when we did. I sipped my coffee, hiding my smile behind the rim of the cup. The whispers I'd started, the evidence I'd strategically leaked. It was all coming together beautifully. As the weeks wore on, Vanessa and Nathan found themselves increasingly isolated. Their shared social circle, disgusted by their actions, began to ostracize them. Invitations dried up. Phone calls went unreturned. Even their closest friends couldn't bring themselves to stand by them in the face of such blatant betrayal. Vanessa, desperate for help, turned to her family. But I'd been careful to cultivate strong relationships with her parents and siblings over the years. They'd always seen me as the dependable, hard-working son-in-law. Now, faced with irrefutable evidence of their daughter's infidelity and deceit, they found themselves siding with me. I'll never forget the day Vanessa showed up at my new apartment, her eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "Please, Caleb," she begged. "I know I don't deserve it, but I need help. I don't know what to do." For a moment, I was tempted to reveal everything, to tell her exactly how thoroughly I'd orchestrated her downfall. But no, the game wasn't over yet. "I'm sorry, Vanessa," I said, my voice firm but not unkind. "But you made your choices. Now you have to live with the consequences." I closed the door on her tearful face, feeling a mix of triumph and something else, something I wasn't quite ready to name, or just a bittersweet taste of a revenge long in the making. Whatever it was, I pushed it aside. There was still work to be done. The financial collapse was complete, but the final act of my plan was yet to come. As the dust began to settle from the financial implosion, I moved into the final phase of my plan. The divorce proceedings were well underway, and it was time to ensure I came out on top. My lawyer, a shark in an expensive suit, had been building our case meticulously. In our initial consultation, he'd raised an eyebrow at the sheer volume of evidence I'd presented. "Mr. Matthews," he'd said, leaning back in his chair, "I have to say, I've never seen a client so prepared." I'd simply nodded, keeping my face neutral. I believe in being thorough. Now, as we sat across from Vanessa and her lawyer in the mediation room, that thoroughness was about to pay off. My lawyer began by painting a vivid picture of me as the victim of long-term emotional and financial abuse. He presented a timeline of Vanessa's affair, cross-referenced with major family events and financial decisions. "As you can see," he said, his voice dripping with barely concealed contempt, "Mrs. Matthews systematically deceived her husband while simultaneously pressuring him to make risky financial moves that benefited her extramarital lifestyle." Vanessa's lawyer tried to object, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank statements, credit card bills, hotel receipts, all carefully curated to show Vanessa in the worst possible light. But the coup de grace came when my lawyer played the recording of Vanessa's confession from the night I confronted her about the affair. Her tearful admission of staying with me for financial security echoed through the room, sealing her fate. I watched as Vanessa crumpled in her chair, all fight gone out of her. Her lawyer, sensing the losing battle, began to bargain for whatever scraps he could get. In the end, the settlement was everything I'd hoped for and more. I would keep the house, what was left of it after the second mortgage, my pension, and the majority of our remaining assets. Vanessa would walk away with little more than her personal belongings and a mountain of debt. As for Emily, well, that was the masterstroke. "Your Honor," I said, speaking up for the first time during the proceedings, "I want to address the issue of Emily." All eyes turned to me, curiosity and wariness mingling in their gazes. Despite the circumstances of her paternity, I love Emily as my own. She's an innocent in all this. However, I paused, letting the tension build. I believe it's in her best interest to know her biological father. Therefore, I'm willing to allow Vanessa and Nathan to raise her, with generous visitation rights for myself. The room fell silent. I could see the wheels turning in everyone's minds. To them, I was being magnanimous, putting Emily's needs above my own pain. In reality, I was freeing myself of the daily reminder of Vanessa's betrayal, while simultaneously burdening her and Nathan with the responsibility of raising a child in the midst of their financial ruin. It was the perfect revenge, cold, calculated, and wrapped in the guise of selflessness. As the divorce was finalized, I watched my carefully constructed plan come to its ultimate fruition. Nathan, already reeling from his business collapse, now faced multiple investigations for tax evasion and fraud. I'd made sure that news of his misdeeds reached potential employers and clients, effectively blacklisting him in the industry. Vanessa, once the darling of our social circle, was now a pariah. Whispers followed her wherever she went, her reputation in tatters. The financial burden of raising Emily on her own, coupled with the mountain of debt I'd saddled her with, ensured she'd be struggling for years to come. As for me, I emerged from the ordeal with my reputation not just intact, but enhanced. I was seen as a strong, forgiving victim who had weathered a terrible betrayal with grace and dignity. It was this image that landed me a prestigious teaching position at an exclusive private school in another state. A fresh start, away from the painful memories and the prying eyes of those who knew my story. But I wasn't content to simply walk away. No, I had one final card to play. Using my newfound platform as a respected educator, I penned a best-selling book on overcoming betrayal. Weathering the Storm, A Journey Through Infidelity and Redemption, hit the shelves just as I was settling into my new life. The book was a sensation. Talk shows, speaking engagements, even whispers of a movie deal. Suddenly, I was everywhere. My story of resilience and forgiveness resonated with people across the country. Of course, the Caleb Matthews portrayed in those pages was a carefully crafted persona, the wronged husband who had found the strength to forgive, if not forget, the dedicated father who had put his child's needs above his own pain, the man who had emerged from the ashes of betrayal stronger and wiser. It was the perfect coda to my symphony of revenge. Not only had I destroyed Vanessa and Nathan's lives, but I'd turned their betrayal into my stepping stone to success. As I packed up my belongings, preparing to leave town for my new life, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. The past year had been a whirlwind of calculated moves and carefully orchestrated chaos. I'd played the long game, and I'd won. I thought of Vanessa and Nathan, facing a future of legal battles, financial ruin, and social exile. I thought of Emily, innocent and unaware of the storm that had torn apart her family. For a brief moment, a flicker of doubt crossed my mind. Had I gone too far? But then I remembered the pain, the humiliation, the years of lies and betrayal. No, I decided. They had made their choices. Now, they would live with the consequences. I took one last look around the house that had once been our home. Then, without a backward glance, I walked out the door and into my new life. Caleb Matthews, the wronged husband, the dedicated teacher, the best-selling author, was ready to face the world. Let Vanessa and Nathan deal with the wreckage. I had a bright future ahead of me, built on the ashes of their betrayal. And as I drove away from the town that had witnessed my greatest pain and my most exquisite revenge, I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. The game was over, and I had won. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.